Welcome. Welcome to our second live backstage. Well, actually, it's half and half because there's still people following us virtually, people who could not come here physically at the museum. But I should say that after all this time, it's a great emotion seeing again people in this room. Today, we conclude what you've seen, so the 4 days dedicated to celebrate the 111 years of Alfa Romeo with events for the press, and then the GTAs, delivery, and then events with the audience. We wanted to tell different stories, but today we're talking about the 4C concept. Actually, in the calendar of this year's backstages, we wanted to use all the celebrations with the number one. And it was 2011 when there was the preview of concept. So now I welcome a person who's responsible for the design department of Alfa Romeo. So you designed the logo of the 211, yes, and together with a couple of colleagues, we put it on the belly of the Formula One car in a very difficult way because Alfa Romeo with the logo 111, you will see it, has one side which is different from the other. So on one side it goes down, on the other side it goes up, and it's not easy because there are spaces also which are dedicated to the sponsors, and Alfa Romeo had a precise space. You cannot do whatever you want, you have a dedicated space, and the 111 logo is there. But if you see on the front, there's also the GTA crest. It's a small detail that replaces for this Grand Prix the logo of Alfa, which is usually present in the racing car. Alessandro, please sit down. 10 years have passed already. Yes, 10 years. It looks unreal. Of course, I would like as well to welcome all the people who are present here today. There's people who come 20, 30 times to the museum. Yeah, I see some of them. Then the supporter of Verstappen in the front row, and then there are people who are here for the first time, and I welcome them as well. In this presentation, I will try to describe how the 4C was born. This car was not born randomly, so I try to tell you historically how the project was born, and if you visit the museum you will understand everything I say. Let's immediately start. I will show you several images. I want to go fast so that if you have questions we can also have a time dedicated to that. This is the car, but as I said before, it is important for me to set this in the historical path. We are in a museum, and it's the best place to talk about the history of Alfa Romeo. What you see behind me is a sequence, if you want, simplified, of the transformation of the front of Alfa Romeo cars year after year, generation after generation. You can see that there are several cars. Before, you see the radiator grille, and then in the post-war period, the crest with the two air intakes to the side, and then again the front of Alfa Romeo is transformed, and little by little we arrive at today, 2003. Let's say there's a shift, which is 166 in its second series, and if we want, well, it anticipates the family where the initiator is the Auto C Competizione. And from here, I'd like to start my story, but first of all I should say something. What has been done around the Alfa Romeo was not only done by the design department, but also by the body car makers and experts. And here at the museum you've seen how many of them worked around the brand Alfa Romeo. What you see here is just the main ones, but there are others who created incredible objects. I must say that the help of all these car body makers enriched the Alfa Romeo, so you can see anything around. When you see an Alfa Romeo, there are narrow, short, long, round, square cars, foreseeable, unforeseeable, and that is the richness that we can go to when we think about our model. Let's think about the Auto C Competizione, 8C Competizione. It's an important model. It's the beginning of the 2000s, and there was a moment of decision. Wolfgang Egger was the new responsible of the design department, and he wanted to define a sort of initiator. So, as I said before, many car body experts work at the Alfa Romeo. He wanted to have one as a flagship, as a starter, the initiator of something. And you see the mood board that was originated around the 8C. Several cars you see up left, the Alfa 33 Stradale, which today is in the museum and was not there the other day. Yes, because it was in Rome and then it came back. It's beautiful. And then Disco Volante, Giulietta Sprint Coupe, all cars who served as an inspiration for the 8C Competizione. It was launched as a concept in 2003 and then it was launched in production in 2006. It was a very important car because, as I was saying before, it was putting again in order the fundamental elements, and Alfa Romeo wanted to follow to define the new cars that would be produced later on. And one of the elements that I like to remember and remind you always is the dictionary of Alfa Romeo. These 4 words, among many others that we have, represent Alfa Romeo history, traditions, language, heritage. They belong to this brand. They are not from other brands. But we will see later on how these words, mixing together with other important words, can be used to give us an indication, a path. One of the fundamental elements of 8C Competizione, as any other Alfa Romeo, is the front. So, as I said, the crest with the 2 air intakes is the business card, and there are no other elements disturbing this trilobate element, and this was one of the elements that had to appear on the car. And then another important thing, Alfa Romeo is made of proportions. There are no elements of over design, but when we can, we often try to work by eliminating things. The car must be beautiful from far. From far you see the proportions, the volume, you don't see the lines. And then the muscles, the 8C Competizione, for those of you who know it, it's nice to touch because the volumes are very sensual, very nice. And these are the words that came out of the research for the 8C competition. So you see the yellow lines. The design the sections characterizing the car, and all this, as I said, those 4 words that I mentioned before, mixed with other words which are more general. Also other brands can use these words. Dynamism, proportions, agility can be used by Jaguar, BMW, any other brand. But I will say that in the context of this vocabulary, they create a starting base which is very strong to design the new Alfa Romeo cars. From this vocabulary, the first cars that come out are the Mito in 2008. Many of you still has the Mito, raise your hands. Young, not so young. When we had the Club Mito meeting, Lorenzo, the average age was 23. Yes, they are very, very young. There's a huge number of people with the Mito. It's fun. I was the oldest one. Anyway, a Mito in 2008 and Giulietta in 2010. You can see as the DNA of the brand was then transformed in the 2 cars. Mito had to be a sort of remake of the 8C. It was impossible to do that, but we managed to do that, and it was a super successful car. And the Mito today, if you see it on the streets, is still very recognizable, even if it's not a new car. And the family is completed. You see the 2003, the 8C concept, and then until 2011, when we present the 4C concept in Geneva. Let's start with the description of this car. Who knows the Scarabeo? Not very much. Not many people know the Scarabeo. It's a very peculiar car. If you see and my back, and you see like the X-rays in the slide, you can understand what happens. The engine is behind the two seats and the spare wheel is in the front. So the characteristic of this car is having this long front and this vertical wall at the back. The car is very small. It looks big, but it's very, very small. It's like a go-kart almost. And this is the real inspiration of the layout of the 4C. So a back engine, and then there was a car that was used for the muscularity, the sensuality. I call this the sacred monster, which is contained in the museum. It is the 33 Stradale that you know very well, designed by Scaglione in '67. As you see from the sizes, it's a car which is less than 1 meter. I could only fit if I stay bended. The doors open through a rotor transfer to the front and up. This allows those who go in the car to be almost there, standing on his feet and then sitting in the car. Well, it's a unique characteristic. If you take away the crest from the car, it was beautiful. Scaglione didn't want to put the crest on this car, and you see, it's really something as if it were added last minute. These are very nice pictures of the car that is here in the museum. You can appreciate the brutality of the car. There is nothing added, as I was saying before. You see the chassis goes around the engine, the suspensions, there's nothing else. And I must say that when you see the car on the street, is really impressive. These are the first drawings, so please look at the date. Top right, it's October 2010. Officially the project of 4C starts. These are drawings that we did. Bottom right was the first chassis that we received when we were talking about Dallara for the collaboration with 4C. There was an important collaboration with this big name, especially for the development of the project, on the handling and the dynamics of the car. You can see that the car had an air intake at the top, which was not used afterwards, two-seater car. And if you want, this was the working paper that we started from. We started from the inside, so there was a carbon chassis, two-seater car. The dynamism of the car was very important. The car had to be very light. We could not add wings or spoilers because the goal of the car was being a democratic sports car. I don't know if you remember, but during the launch in Geneva, the cost of this car, we're not talking about today, but it was 52,000 euros back then, the launch edition. So imagine that the carbon fiber chassis is the same chassis used by cars just like Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini. So they were made with the same technology of the Formula One that we just saw on the racing track. And the words that you see to the left were really things that for engineers and for the design team were very, very important to follow. There was nothing to add, and we discussed a lot, and also with Bagnasco, who was here to present the GTA with me. We discussed a lot on what we could do and could not do. So this is another sketch, a working sketch. You see things that then were not put on the final car, just like the air outlet at the front and at the back. We discussed often with Dallara where to have an air outlet below or on the top of the car, and then we decided for the part below the car. If you look at the bottom part of the 4C, they're gonna do that, you know. Well, okay, they can go below and they will see the air outlet for the cooling of the radiator. These are other research drawings. The car was already in preparation, And there were also different solutions for the back. So what you see now are drawings that you will see also around us. You can have a look at them. These are research sketches that were used to generate the projector and the headlamps that you see on the car. It's very conceptual. I will tell you later what happens in production. But this was the working bench around which me and two more people were working. So the two people that I will introduce later were the model makers helping me. So you see the drawings. This is a clay model on a 1:3 scale. It's a very important scale, and this scale allows you to manage very well the volumes of the car, the details of the quality, but still moving around the model. The timing was very narrow. The model was not painted, it was in clay, and then we covered it with a Dynoc film, which is a film having the same color of the chassis. It is applied with water, and the presentation to Marchionne was done exactly as you see it below. So with this Dynoc film, and the approval was given to go to Geneva. And as you can see, there are the mirrors which are identical of the ones that produced, because the impression was trying to have a concept for Geneva, trying to understand what was the feedback of the audience, and then deciding whether to produce the car or not, and then we produced the car. So this is the model. As you see, there's a sort of defect below the side air out intake. I wanted to do to put that, but then we eliminated it because it was not nice to see. It was just like a flaw. This is a sequence of slides to make you understand the aim of the model. So there was a back volume where there is the muscularity of the car. The car is vertical at the back, it must express power. You see, the top part of the muscle is on the front of the wheel, so it's like a felon ready to jump. And then from the air inlet, so there's the power, the engine, then these long muscles go to the front and embrace the crest and the headlamps. You will see it in another slide. And then there's a line, belt line, which is like the profile, the silhouette of a Formula One on the 4C, the blue one you see here with the carbon roof. If you took it away, it has the same lines of a Formula One car. Here you can see the volumes that we wanted to suggest somehow. When you look at the car, you see that these lines are not immediately perceivable, but when you go around the car with the light, you can see all these suggestions, and it's very nice when the car is moving. December 2010, so October, November, December. Starting from the end of October to December 2010, we went from design to model on a 1:1 scale. 5 months were spent to do this model. You can imagine, what do you do in 5 months? You go to school, you work, what happens in 5 months? It's a total mess. And in February happens what you think could never happen, but in the end it has to happen, otherwise it's a disaster. But I will tell you something later. So you see the model, the one you saw before in Dynoc, left and right. It's near Christmas. There's only 2 people working on half a model. To the left you see that there is no model. You work on 1/2 because then you do the scanning, you duplicate the other part, and that model is used for the molds. So you see this person on the hood. Now with the computer we work a lot with algorithms, mathematics, sophisticated tools, but I assure you that what is done by that person with a piece of wood, it's just a piece of wood that can vary in length. What those 2 hands and the brain do is incredible. There's a craftsman, there's a knowledgeable people who knows how to create a car. And to the right you see there's resin, and it's a lot of work. January 2011. There's no time to create a model for the interior. We do the mathematics algorithms because at the end of the February the car must be ready. The car arrives in Geneva the first week of March. So again, there was a rush. It was incredible. So the internal elements are very important. These are nice drawings representing the concept. I will then explain you the difference between concept and then a shift to production. And here there's like a dozen people around the model. In this stage, anything happens. You will also see this in the next image. It's at night, it's around 10 p.m. At the end of a working day. People are tired, but we have to continue working. During the last month, model makers work on 3 shifts so that we cover 24 hours per day of activity. The designers are always the same, so we take shifts as well to always be present. So what happens around such a model? You see to the left there's a person with a grinding wheel on the model, then you see a part painted, and then you see in this slide a moment of check around the car. The car is almost assembled. They are preparing all the pieces. Another moment when the model makers are all gone to have some rest. Then the activities continue. The rim, which is the one you see on the car, which is very similar to the one which will be produced, the dashboard, which took its shape, and something which hardly you see. This is a small piston that you have at the back of your headrest and guarantees the amortization of the headrest. And then an image which is very nice to the right. You've seen people working with a grinding wheel, so it's a very heavy work, and then hands that retouch the red on some push buttons that you will see on the central console. So it's a very intense 360-degree work, but it's also very fun. This is the car presented in Geneva in 2011. The 4C was the last car to get to Geneva. We thought it would never get there because with Switzerland there are problems of customs during the weekends, and the car arrived trying to avoid the most important customs in order to get to Geneva on time. It was the last car to arrive. There was a Giulietta with a special version ready to replace the 4C because we didn't think the car would arrive. But the night before, at midnight, the dashboard cracked. The responsible of the supplier wanted to disassemble all the internal part and reassemble it to fix it. I assure you it was craziness, but it's part of our job. This is the car with a very specific color. The car was matte, and in Geneva the result, you see here, it is nice, but the car looked like it was pink. Then in the following presentations the color was changed and it became this one. Few images in our courtyard at the design department. The car is very compact. This is a nice detail. It was the 150th celebration of the Italian unification, and all the cars of the Fiat group had a flag, Italian flag, on the stands. So I remember Ramaciotti asked me, we have to think about something. I said, we already did it. So the shape that you see, the stem supporting the rear window, suggests the pole of a flag in the wind. So there's a natural moment. It comes from the chassis, the body, and supports the carbon rear view. So the Italian flag is symmetrical, so just like in the diplomatic body. So the green is attached to the pole. In this case, the pole is the car. That's the reason why on one side it looks like it's reversed, because everyone asks me, why is it in the wrong way? No, it's not in the wrong position.
Sì, se vogliamo, diciamo, c'è
Well, the aim was to give the priority to the car, and then the pole starts, and then the flag is attached to it. So that's the aim. If you look at the flag, of course, you would like to see the green before, and it would be wrong on this part. But we did it on purpose, just like the cars of the diplomatic body, which has the two flags attached to the hood. These are nice pictures done, taken in our courtyard, where the car is very, very nice and dynamic. And this is the inside of the car. Well, the inside revolves around the pilot. You see the dashboard surrounding the driver, and this is a very nice moment. Villa d'Este 2012. This color was produced specifically for this event, and the color is called Rosso Villa d'Este, rich in pigments. And if you see the car under the sun, it's incredible because it goes from red to black almost in the lower parts. And do we have the prize here, the award, the museum? No one stole it? No, here no one stole anything. Yesterday night we didn't have the time to bring the award. So this is the award in this picture. It looks like huge, but it's very small actually. It is the design award. It is very special for me and for the people who worked on this project, because the award of Villa d'Este is given by the audience, not by the jury. The jury, the first day, gives the award to the historical cars, and the audience is the one who gives the award to the concepts, which are then exposed in the next days. That was the team who worked on the car at the time. There's a person here who still works for Alfa Romeo. Many of these people are no longer here because they went in other companies, for other brands. Next to me, so he was blonde actually. He had long hair, longer than mine. Antonio Erario, I don't know where is he now today. Okay, he's in the room, and now he went to work for some competitors, but we worked alongside for years, and you will see things that he did and that were very important. These are the two people that I want to introduce you before. Two model makers. The one to the left is retired, the right one is here. I call him Wild Horse because he is crazy, but then when he starts working, he's a genius, he's an artist. And the nice thing of this trio, because we were working, the three of us, I did the volumes, and then they fixed the quality aspects of the model, and it was a very, very nice activity to be done together. Now I should launch a video, so for a few seconds you won't hear my boring voice.
We can play with our emotions, doing something override. All we need is an answer, an answer, an answer.
E questo... Grazie.
Thank you. And this was a video shot totally in virtual. So nowadays we are used to have virtual movies with incredible effects, and this video was totally done with mathematics and algorithms, because we didn't have time to shoot videos on the track. The track was the one of Balocco, and the data of the car were already there. I remember that when we presented the concept in Geneva, Harald Wester, who was the CEO of Alfa Romeo, declared the weight of the car, the price of the car, but in reality the car was not defined yet. So I remember me and my colleagues looked at each other in the eyes when he declared the weight, that the weight had to be below 900 kilos, while he put a limitation that was incredible, but in the end we could make it. We managed to do it. 2013, the production starts. You see an example here. It's a specific example because there's a carbon top with a specific exhaust, but I'd like to show you what happens when you go and launch the production of a car. So on top you see the internal ergonomics made of targets, goals, numbers, visibility, shock, lateral shocks, etc. Those two images to the at the bottom are the algorithms that Antonio created and are used because you have to test the car even though the car is not present. You have to do the aerodynamics calculations that you need to do the homologation of a car. You cannot get there randomly. And then these are slides that I stole at some meetings I worked at. You see that there are elements relative to the shock, also competitors. So this is what happens when you design a car, but this is just an extra. I can show you thousands of slides like this one when there are meetings over meetings. This is another nice image. The car was not existing yet, and you do the CFD. So the calculation of aerodynamics through softwares. So this is a very nice stage, especially when you go to the wind tunnel, and this is a comparison between the sports car and the coupe. There's a note to the right, and these are moments of work. This is not a presentation. These are slides stolen from emails that we shared with considerations on the project. I like to say that this is not an Andy Warhol painting, but it is what a car produces when it is tested through softwares for the computational aerodynamics. What you see are the waves propagating around the body of the car in red. You see the pressures and deep pressures on the car that make you understand a lot of elements with the car. Look what happens behind the rear view mirror. This is what happens around the 4C, but it happens around all the cars that we drive every day. It is important to optimize this because this means performances. As today, this also means a lower consumption and emissions. This is a very nice moment. We are at the wind tunnel in Dallara. I like to remind this name because we are talking about the top. When we talk about a sports car, everybody goes to Dallara to test their cars because it's a sort of guru of aerodynamics and handling of the car. It's a very nice model in Carbon Fighter. Inside it is very functional, so there is a car, but and all the other elements. The white parts are the parts that are replaced. So it's a quick prototype. They are disassembled and assembled to understand whether the previous or the next solution is better or worse. And I must say that this was one of the most interesting moments because the car started to take its shape, and even though it's small, you see the wheels start rolling. You see, this is the level of details. You can see the grille in the front, at the back, you can see the exhausts. The scale is 1 to 3. This is a slide summarizing the macro differences that we have between the concept car and the car that was produced. Of course, the first thing that we lost is the rear view, unfortunately, but it was also luckily because we broke it twice and the cost was more than 4,000 euros to fix it, because as you see, being attached to the door, this implies also painting the entire door, and it's 3 layers, so you also have to repaint all the side to avoid problems of matching colors. The headlamps, well, unfortunately we had to fight, but I must say for the front it was a matter of weight. Imagine that the front weight saves 5 kilos compared to a conventional projector. In the famous logic of price lower than 2,000 euros, so 1,999. Also, the 4C had to declare a weight less than 900 kilos, and the projector was one of the fundamental elements in this. And then a short anecdote: when we inserted the projector in the 4C sports car, the Spider, because we thought it was fittest to the car, actually the customers who continued to buy the coupe and could put the projector, they continued to buy the projector as in the original version. So if you want, the coupe was then accepted with this strange projector, and the Spider had the other headlamps. There was sort of a natural division. Now you see sort of a puzzle with the elements of the car which was produced. We modified some elements of the concept, and I'm gonna shortly start you the heart, the carbon fiber chassis, 65 kilograms. You see the weight of the carbon chassis. It's an exceptional component. If you see it naked, it's impressive. And in this sequence, you see what happens around the carbon chassis. This is the soul of the car. What should not be touched when you have a car crash, because if you touch this, it means that the pilot, the driver, is in danger. But the chassis is very resistant, and then there are aluminum elements to the front and to the back when the suspensions at the engine are placed, and we mount the engine at the back, and then all the elements that support the panels, suspensions, wheels, and then the final body of the car. You see that it's similar to the 33 Stradale. Look at the skin. Look, there's nothing between the skin and the mechanical part. Anything goes and revolves around the mechanical part that has to be covered. Okay, another element on the inside, and then we conclude. You see, but I like to see the top part of the car, because I consider it the nicest part of the car, the one which is less visible. It's very nice because it has a dynamic geometry. Look at the graphics of the rear window with the side windows. You see the waves that create air outlets. Well, what about the inside? On the concept, as I said, we put the pilot at the center, and then everything revolved around the pilot, the driver, instruments, panels, etc. We couldn't allow this for the cost, because we had to create components rightly for this car, and for a logic of production this can never happen, and then also because this meant adding weight to the car. So we went to the opposite direction. Instead of having all around the pilot, we put everything in front of the pilot. And if you look at this drawing, here there are study drawings, and then there are final drawings that you have seen previously, but everything happens in this small tool behind the driving wheel. And we are really very close to a Formula 1 car. Anything you need is in front of you. You don't need anything else. There's two nice seats in leather, but that bring us back to the concept of a tailor-made Italian car with a nice color, with the logo on the headrest. And then, of course, a small tool that gives you all the information you need. I wanted to put this slide because here there's some people who drive the 4C, you're very lucky. And I'm sure that they feel the 4C like a motorbike rather than a car. When you sit, when you hear the roar, because every cigarette, every pebble is felt below the wheels the first time, you get worried because you feel you're breaking it, and then you realize it's normal. Just like when you drive a motorbike, you've got this feeling on the 4C and you've got the feeling of being one with the car, exactly like it happens on a motorbike. There was a shift on the Spider version, sports car, just a few drawings, because then the car was born on the mathematics and the physical model. 4C, a convertible car, which was presented in 2014 in Geneva again, and then you see a nice image together with a coupe. In this image you can see the back hood. It's hard to say whether the coupe or the Spider was better. Maybe I like to say that the Spider version is even nicer because it envelops the engine and it shows it, and it's even more comfortable to drive, because when you turn your head, you see very well the road. With the back window in the coupe has a narrower window. We are almost finished. To the left, the 4C is receiving the engine through that yellow arm, which is then controlled by a person. This picture was shot by Stefano, that you see on the floor, like the soccer players who roll on the pitch. We are in Modena, and you see people assembling the car, and the car is then ready to get out of the factory. At the time, maybe you remember Steve's video, there was a special pilot, a special driver for the road version. I was told this is a supercar. Let's try and test it. Here we are on the Palocco racetrack. This new Alfa Romeo 4C has an impeccable driving position. The handling is fantastic. The front of the car is very precise, the driving wheel is very light, but when you start curving, it gets stiffer, just like the racing cars. Also in the quick curves, the car is very precise, incredible stability at the back. As you can see, you can drive it for the entire circuit without ever leaving the steering wheel. I like the display very much. It's very effective and gives me all the information that I need immediately. Now let's try another curve. Wow, lateral acceleration is impressive. The feeling when you brake is very nice, the acceleration is quite high, and the ABS, you almost never feel it. Excellent driving feeling thanks to the mechanical gear. The car is well balanced, but very fun. Something which makes this car even more racing is the roar of the engine. Low roll, compact, incredible handling. Good job. And I must say that Fisichella did a great review. I talked with him the night of the presentation. He did a great review of the car. We are here today at the museum, so this is the image that I like about the museum. Top left, people who made the Alfa Romeo. This is one of the rooms, of course. And today the 4C goes out of production, is going out of production. It is, we are phasing it out. We finished to produce the cars for the market, Australia, Japan and United States, with a special version, which is this one, with a red carbon chassis, with a special leather and the golden rims, and then there's an Alfa Romeo in front of the back wheel, like it was done in the past. This is the 10 years of the car that some of you wanted to buy and are passionate to drive. Thank you.